Some images are not merely seen, they happen throughout the history of art. Women have often been depicted not as heroes, but as the very site where power unfolds, a power that decides, that sacrifices, and then demands an audience. In these images, the woman stands. Yet she does not stand in resistance. She stands at the moment when no choice remains. Bright garments, delicate bodies, serene faces, everything conspires to persuade us that this is simply beauty. But here, beauty is the mask of violence. These women are not in love, not mad, not guilty. They stand in our place, at the point where politics, religion, morality, and men join hands to determine who must be erased. History is rarely written in a loud voice. It is written in silence, with a woman who closes her eyes, with a hand that extends forward, with a kiss that tastes of farewell. And we, centuries later, stand before these images and look at them, without being certain whether we are merely spectators or participants in the continuation of the same narrative. I could speak about this until morning, but now my goal is to focus more deeply on the subject to analyze and examine these works. The first painting is titled Ophelia by Henri Lehmann, the Franco-German painter. He was known for historical, religious, and allegorical painting, and he drew particular inspiration from mythology and writers such as Shakespeare and Goethe. This work belongs to the Romantic movement and falls within the genre of literary painting and portraiture. The first time I heard the word Romanticism, it felt unfamiliar, and I became curious. You may feel the same. So allow me to open a brief parenthesis and explain. Romanticism was one of the most significant and influential intellectual, artistic, and literary movements in Western history. It began in the late 18th century and continued into the mid-19th century. More than merely a style, it was a deep philosophical and human reaction to the modern world, to dry rationalism and the mechanical order of the Enlightenment. Romanticism was the cry of the human being against a world that wished to explain everything through logic, numbers, and laws. Romanticism rests upon several fundamental pillars. 1. Emotion over reason. Feeling, intuition, and inner experience are more important than logic and law. 2. Individualism. The romantic hero is different, incompatible with society, often suffering and inwardly wounded. 3. Nature as a living spirit. Nature is not merely scenery. It is the mirror of the human soul. It is magnificent, terrifying, mysterious, and even divine. 4. Imagination and dream. Dreams, myths, legends, and the supernatural are valued. 5. Nostalgia and the past. An interest in the Middle Ages, myths, indigenous cultures, folklore. Now that we understand Romanticism more clearly, we can return to the painting. This painting depicts Ophelia, one of the characters from Shakespeare's play Hamlet, written around 1601. In the course of the story, after Hamlet, her lover, rejects her and kills her father, Ophelia descends into madness. Many artists have portrayed Ophelia, particularly the scene in Act 4, Scene 7, where her death is described by the Queen. In this interpretation, the painter shows a young woman who extends her hands hesitantly and releases flowers. The white and violet flowers symbolize youth and purity. The flowers are never just flowers. Leaves are tangled in her hair, and a thorny branch rests upon her shoulder, a sign of suffering and death. A dark, shadowed background frames her delicate figure and pale skin, making them stand out. Her features are gentle and refined, yet in her gaze there is a deep and intense emotion. What I admire about this painting is how beautifully Lehmann renders her. Though trained within the French academic tradition and a student of Ingres, his approach goes beyond realism. He was deeply engaged with literature, religion, myth, and the human psyche. Rather than merely reconstructing an event, Lehmann was interested in capturing a mental state, exactly what Romanticism sought. Not what happened, but what was felt. When I first encountered Ophelia while reading Hamlet, I realized something important. Ophelia is a girl who never has an independent voice. Her father, Polonius, controls her. Hamlet rejects her. Political schemes unfold around her. When her father is killed by Hamlet, Ophelia collapses not with screams, but with a quiet, poetic madness. Even her death does not occur before us. It is merely narrated just as her life was narrated, never truly lived. This painting is housed in the Hamburger Kunsthalle. If I ever visit, I would leave a small piece of paper there and write this. Ophelia represents women who feel too deeply, and therefore have no place in a rational, male-dominated order. Here, her madness is not weakness. It is the consequence of pressure. Lehman does not depict Ophelia as a lunatic. He portrays her as a sacred sufferer. Ophelia does not die. She dissolves into silence, into darkness, into beauty. And perhaps that is why, centuries later, she still refuses to release her hold on our gaze.